Hey, Forge fans, Anthony Urciuoli here, your digital host, and it is your weekly focus on Forge as part of the Forge Audio Network. Anyone that's been in Hamilton long enough or followed sports in Hamilton long enough knows about the notorious wind at Hamilton's stadium, now known as Tim Hortons Field. Of course, before that, Ivor Wynne Stadium. It was the Civic Stadium even before that. That grounds has had a stadium located there for a very long time. And for as long as anyone can remember, wind has been a topic of conversation. It seems odd, but hear me out for a sec. Anyone that's been there, you've experienced it. It seems to defy all laws of physics. It's unpredictable, it changes, it swirls. It's like you're in some kind of a wind tunnel, and we know how that's affected football in the past, especially the kickers. And now it's something that our soccer players have had to adjust to. Now, the wind can be especially challenging for goalkeepers. Forge FC's Tristan Henry, who is one of the more active and aggressive keepers in Canadian soccer, he has to account for the conditions.
Yeah, it changes the way the ball moves in the air. Sometimes it speeds up, sometimes it slows down, changes direction. But we just try and deal with it as best as we can.
Are there added challenges being an aggressive goalkeeper as you are?
It's just, like I said, just judging the wind. Like every cross, every shot is different. You just have to make sure you take the time to judge it as best as you can and make the decision.
In the challenging and unpredictable weather conditions at Tim Hortons Field and in Hamilton over the last week or so could be considered symbolic of the start of the 2022 Canadian Premier League season for Forge. The club has dominated possession in the first two matches, and they feel that they were the better club in both. However, Forge remains winless, 0-1-1, heading into their home match against FC Edmonton on Saturday.
Yeah, I think we're doing the right things on the field. We just have to tighten up a couple of things in the back and just finish off our chances. But like I said, we usually start off pretty slow, and the season's not won or lost in the first month or two. So we just have to keep going and trust the process.
Yeah, now finishing has been an area where Forge has been looking to improve through their first two matches. In the season opener against Pacific FC, I promise I'll stop bringing up that match. But let's just go back to it for a moment, because Forge had 65% of the possession and finished with 13 shot attempts in that match. However, only 3 of those attempts hit the target, and Forge lost 2-1. Now, if any club can withstand dropping points early in a season, it's the one from Hamilton. Since the CPL's inception in 2019, Forge is a combined 1-3-4 in its first two matches of a season, and they've been outscored 13-9 in those games. Now, despite that, Forge has appeared in each of the first 3 CPL finals, winning 2 of them. They've also enjoyed unprecedented success in CONCACAF play. All right, joining us now on the Forge Audio Network is Oliver Platt, Canadian Premier League analyst for One Soccer. Welcome, Oliver. Through the first 2 matches, I've never seen a team more relaxed than Forge after starting a season winless like this. And obviously it's something they've just become accustomed to, starting slow and finishing strong. In those first 2 matches, did you see a team that just isn't too worried about the early results, so to speak?
Yeah, I don't think it's an accident that they've started, each season slowly now. I think it's just kind of part of the process that they go through, right? The reality is this league is designed in a way where it's not about being the best team over the course of the entire season. It's about being the best team at the end of the season. And so, being the best, looking like the best team in the CPL on day one doesn't necessarily lend itself to, going down that path of peaking at the right time. And so I think Bobby Smeniotis has always been, no matter what kind of state his squad has been in, and this year there's probably been a bit more change on that front. He's always been about, building the style of play, building the identity of the team, easing into the season and growing the team as the season goes on with a view to, being at their best when it comes to October, November. So this is no different. I think there's definitely been some good signs there with Forge, but yeah, that does seem to be the approach they take year in, year out, and it's worked pretty well so far.
Yeah, and you look at the offseason that Forge have, and it doesn't look like a club that's content with just winning CPL titles. I mean, that's great, but the aspirations seem to expand beyond that. They added a lot of depth this past offseason.
Yeah, and they were close last year, right? Two semifinals in the Canadian Championship and the CONCACAF League. So I think it has to be the case, certainly for a team that's won two titles already like Forge, but for any team in the CPL that, wants to be a top club in this league, it can't just be about this league. It can't just be about the Canadian teams playing each other and beating each other. We need to go and prove ourselves internationally, whether that's, playing against the MLS teams in the Canadian Championship or playing from clubs from different countries in the CONCACAF competitions. And we know that's going to ramp up with the Champions League changing as it is as well. So I think that's something that Bobby's always pretty clearly had his eye on. And yeah, he's going to continue to build the squad. And I think a bit of maybe a younger squad this year, bringing through some young players with big potential who could maybe be ready to tackle that Champions League when it comes.
Yeah, and it's a good sign, not just for Forge fans, but I think Canadian soccer fans as a whole, that the Canadian Premier League debuts, people are kind of like, oh, I don't know, like it's to build a league from scratch. I mean, the graveyard of failed sports leagues is it's vast, and the fact that and I think Forge's approach kind of encapsulates the league as a whole, that this isn't a league just content on surviving and existing. I mean, they truly sought out to grow the game in this country, and I think it's reflective in even just Forge's approach this season.
Yeah, I think like the reality is, it's Canada is like the country with the most resources, the most developed country, whatever you want to call it, in the world that didn't have a men's professional soccer league, right? So the potential is there. We've seen what can happen in countries like Australia, Japan, countries that maybe people don't think about as the elite of the elite in terms of national teams and soccer leagues, but they've started their own leagues. Those leagues over 10, 20, 25 years now have reached a very competitive level, and those teams have been regulars at the World Cup as a result of building out that kind of platform and infrastructure. So there was always big potential here. At the same time, it was never going to be a guarantee that the league was successful or even survives. But I think the way they've built it, they have a good model with the CSB and pooling all of the resources with the national teams and so on. And yeah, I think coming out of a pandemic and the way that could have disrupted the first few seasons of the league and did disrupt the first few seasons of the league, we can feel pretty good about where things are and where the clubs are.
Yeah, and there's a fine line too, because I think you want to reward the fans that have been there from the start. But in a lot of ways, I mean, this is still a brand new league, because not only, sure, it's been around, they're going into their fourth season, but COVID was kind of sandwiched and I mean, it's still going on, but COVID slowed things down a bit. So, I mean, in a lot of ways, the league is still just welcoming by the day new fans, new eyes. So as an analyst, you do want to speak to those hardcore fans, but there's kind of a line there, because you also want to be able to educate some of the newer eyes and ears that are just being exposed to the league for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely think about that it's something where the audience can't just, whether it's in stadiums or watching on broadcast, the audience can't just stay what it is, right? It needs to grow, and we need to bring more people in. So I think that's definitely something we take into account. At the same time, we don't want to talk down to people. We don't want to be really simple and basic and kind of insult people's intelligence in that way. Like I think we try and cover the games with some depth and show people, why certain things are happening and the tactics of the game and so on. But yeah, it's definitely a great point, right? Like the last two seasons, although we've seen football on the pitch, we haven't really seen fans in the stands on a regular basis until the end of last year. So you almost can't really count them as like real seasons for the CPL in terms of really being able to grow the products, off field as well as on it. And you're already seeing this season what a difference it's making, having fans in the stadiums again, building the excitement around the league again, and also just for the players, like having a preseason, not having to play Saturday, Tuesday because the schedule is so congested is making a major difference, I think, to the quality as well.
All right, and just back to Forge for a moment here. What have you seen through those first two matches? I mean, you followed this league and as close as anybody. When you see Forge through these first two games, what kind of jumps out at you? Just differences compared to maybe the prior winning seasons that Forge has had, in terms maybe from a tactical perspective, what Coach Bobby's doing. What have you seen that's maybe been a little different to start this season?
Yeah, I think in terms of the way they play, I wouldn't say there's massive differences. It's more kind of evolution, I think, rather than major changes. I think most of the principles are still the same. They obviously want to be a team that dominates the ball, dominates the game with the ball. They like to get a lot of players in advanced positions when they have the ball to try and create chances and score goals and be an exciting team. So I don't think that's changed too much. It's just kind of the personnel that's changed in various places, like Terran Campbell coming in and Alessandro Hijabrapor and one or two other players. Probably the biggest difference right now is probably the biggest challenge, right, which is the defense. And when you lose players like Kwame Awuah and Eleman Cisse played in defensive positions at times, and then you have Daniel Krutzen out, obviously still recovering from that injury. That's just a really difficult situation to deal with. And I think Forge's performances by and large have been good, but there's just been those key moments where you see a mistake or two that's costly, and you can attribute that to what is a pretty makeshift defensive group right now with not a whole lot of experience of playing together.
Yeah, and I mean, what can you do as a coach? I think Coach Bobby's still trying to maybe find a combination that works. Is there something you can do tactically? Can you incorporate the midfield more and just do things to maybe cover up some? And it's, again, this might be a great defensive unit going down the line, but right now there have been some struggles. So, I mean, what can you do to kind of help that back line out?
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult to mask it because Forge aren't going to change the way they play, and the way they play involves the defenders taking the ball in sometimes risky positions and trying to connect passes, right? They're not just hitting the ball 70 yards long and getting rid of it. There is risk associated with that. And when you have young players or players playing out of position, maybe that is always going to cause you some challenges. I think the good thing is, again, going back to what we were talking about to begin with, is that it's a process, right? And Forge, I think, are okay with seeing some mistakes right now because they know the players being put in these positions and being thrown into different positions, or maybe minutes they didn't expect to have. It will make them better in the long run. You see a young player like Garvin Metusela, who I rate really highly. At the weekend against Cavalry, he makes a mistake. He gives a ball away that obviously leads to Cavalry's second goal. That's going to be a lesson for him, and that's something that will make him better. And there's no question about his potential and the potential of a number of the guys back there. So again, in the long run, it may turn out to be kind of a blessing in disguise that you're seeing different players and the depth of the squad really tested, and they'll be better for that.
All right, Oliver Platt, thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Forge FC will look to collect 3 points on Saturday against FC Edmonton. Kickoff at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton is scheduled for 4 o'clock. Tickets are on sale now. We'll see you there.